Good morning, Mr. Bondevik. Thank you very much for this interview. I would like to ask you some questions about the situation in Somalia, and in particular in Somaliland, as well as about the Club de Madrid project, Women's Leadership for Peace and Security. Our first question is, because of Somaliland declared its independence on May 18, 1991, almost 20 years ago, since then it functioned as a state de facto, with a constitution, a stable government, its own currency, and it even celebrated multi-party elections in 2005 and 2010. It was classified as free and just by international observers from 7 out of 7 countries: Canada, Finland, Kenya, South Africa, United Kingdom, the United States, and Zimbabwe. It has its own population, territory, and sovereignty, but no recognition from the international community. Why has Somaliland not obtained international recognition, and why does it continue to be recognized as the transitional federal government in Mogadishu?
Well, I think this has both political and historical reasons. The background is, of course, that southern Somalia was colonized by Italy, Somaliland by the British. There are also other parts of the greater Somalia, and one part is now Djibouti, one part is in Ethiopia, one part is in Kenya, and so you've got Somalia, and they agreed to be one unity back in the 60s. And so Somaliland had their own civil war from 81 to 91, and there was one clear winner there, SNM, Somalia National Movement, and that was more or less respected by all, and all who wanted to work politically within Somaliland had to work within that framework. I think that's one reason why they are rather peaceful compared to southern Somalia. The reason why it's not internationally recognized is maybe others in Somalia and in the international community are afraid of that if Somaliland is breaking out to be independent, it can have consequences in other parts of Africa and also in Somalia with Puntland and so on. I'm not a current politician now, I'm an ex-politician, so I will not have a clear standpoint on that. It may also have something to do with the history of one part being British colony, the other being an Italian colony, and so on. It's a very delicate issue, but in fact Somaliland is functioning rather independent, so in fact it is like a confederation.
Thank you. The model of Somaliland, which includes relative democratization, is different from that which is being put in practice in the rest of Somalia. An archetype of a failed state. What's your opinion on Somaliland's political model? Do you think it could be an example for the rest of the Horn of Africa?
They have some elements which can be a model. They have political parties, and it's a very strange political system in the way that 18 political parties are running in the election, but after the election it's only allowed with 3 of them, the 3 biggest, and all the other politicians, candidates have to be a member of one of these 3 groupings in the parliament. But it's functioning, and they had a peaceful presidential election. So in some ways it can be a model. But on the other hand, since we are talking about women's participation, also in Somaliland, very few women are politically engaged in the decision-making bodies. It's only 3 women in the parliament, and it's only, as far as I remember, 2 in the cabinet, and but that's too few. So it's so important also for Somaliland now to increase the number of women that are taking part in the decision-making processes.
What's your opinion of the Kenyan military intervention in the south of Somalia against the Al-Shabaab militia?
Well, as a foreigner coming from outside, I will be very, very, very careful to comment on that. But we know the fact that Al-Shabaab has also made the attacks inside the Kenyan borders and responsible for terror, and that is a background why the Kenyans have reacted and gone into Somalia, but it's a very tragic situation. We want peace, and therefore we want Al-Shabaab to stop with their military actions, and if they did that, the foreign troops could also leave Somalia.
Thanks. The Club de Madrid project Women Leadership for Peace and Security consists of a group of 40 female leaders from the Greater Horn of Africa who promote the participation of women in the decision-making related processes. What concrete steps can be taken in this matter? How do you think women can involve themselves in political decision-making?
But first of all, it's necessary to empower women to take part. This has to do with knowledge, skills, and so on, and I think the G40 project is important in that regard. It has been functioning now since 2009, and I think it already has empowered women from many countries at the Greater Horn of Africa to take part in their own country's decision-making processes. Secondly, the man must be willing to share the power with women. And I will say it stronger. We men must stand up for the rights of the women, because the women are half part of the population. And if you more or less exclude them, you exclude half part of the population. And that is not fair. They should be included. So the G40 group has made recommendations when they have had the different gatherings, recommendations to the international community, to IGAD, which is so important in this region, to the governments in the countries where they were hosted now in Somaliland, to religious leaders and to the civil society. All these groupings are so important to open up for the women's participation. And I think also a quota system in the elections, in the parliaments, is necessary, a step towards a more fair representation. And take Norway as an example. It's impossible in Norway to form a government with less than 40% of each sexes. And in the political parties, most of them, we have a quota system, and it is functioning as a step towards a fair representation.
Thank you. And lately, what do you believe the future holds for Somalia and Somaliland? Will there be advancement towards international recognition, toward the unification of the country, or will the situation maintain the status quo?
Well, with regard to Somaliland and a possible recognition, I will not comment concretely on that, because now I'm an ex-politician. I just take note of that the UN still talks about the unity of Somalia, but I hope that all parts of Somalia will move on to improve the living conditions for the people who are suffering. The first and most important precondition is, of course, peace. It's peaceful in Somaliland, it's rather peaceful in Puntland. In the southern Somalia, unfortunately, it is not. So what we hope now, it will be peaceful also in southern Somalia, and I hope that the upcoming London conference, the 23rd of February, will contribute in that regard. And we need the support from the whole of Africa, the African Union, and from the world community and the UN in that regard. If we get peace in all parts of Somalia, they can increase the living conditions. People can start to believe in politics, not only in weapons. That's so important. And then you can also gradually improve the living conditions for common people. It has to do with healthcare, making jobs, the living standard in general. And we know that Somalia is a conflict-ridden area in the world. People are suffering because of that. And now we work for peace. And I think women are crucial in that regard. Because women and children are the victims of wars more than any. And therefore they should be included also in the peace and security processes. Because without the women's perspective, we will miss an important part of it. So I think women can be crucial for making peace. So I think not only for the case of the women, but for the case of all people and for peace of Somalia, we should welcome more women in the processes.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Bondevik.